I took like my artistic license and applied it to my business. And, I didn't go to business school, and I think that's a good thing. So if anybody's thinking about starting an online business, don't feel like you have to have some kind of credential. It's so not true.
Hi, and welcome to the Differently podcast, the show that will help you design your own unique version of a bucket list life lived on your own terms.
Sage, welcome. It's so wonderful to be speaking with you.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Tamron.
We're speaking to Sage Polaris, who is a business coach, and another phrase that I hadn't heard before. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So business coach, because most people know what that is, and conscious launch strategist for the right people who know what that is. And I can explain it a little too. So I've been working on online launches for the last 8 years. And the way you might have experienced it, if you're listening right now, is when you're scrolling through on Facebook or Instagram and you see an ad for some kind of online training, a free event, a summit, a masterclass, whatever it may be. I help write those ads. And once you enroll for that free thing that they're offering, you get a series of emails. I write those emails. And eventually, after you take their free summit or masterclass or whatever you take, they send you to their sales page. And I also write those sales pages. So the reason I talk about doing launch strategy more now, though, is it's rare I take private clients that I write their copy for them. Now I'm more so teaching them about the strategies that will work for their business. So that's where I'm at these days.
Wonderful. And there's two things that stick out for me from what I've followed. I've followed you for a few years, and I've seen all of the magical work that you've done and the important work that you've done. But there's two important things that have happened. Is that when I met you, you had a different name than you do now. You've changed your name, and I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah, that's such a rich conversation, and it kind of dovetails with what I was just saying, in the sense that for the good, first 6 years of my business, I was showing up as a copywriter. And so I was writing all of those things for clients. So I was helping them with their launches, but more so on the writing side only, and not really talking to them too much about strategy. Occasionally, I would give them a tip or two. And when I decided that I no longer wanted to be known as only a copywriter, I wanted to change my name because I knew it would get attention. So it was partially a brand play. I wanted people to recognize my brand as something new and different. And during that time of wanting to transition to becoming more of a coach, I was getting ready to host a live event in Niagara Falls. Basically, I was going from copywriter to coach, and I wanted people to see me in a new way. And I knew that changing my name would signify that. But also the name change is something that came from really realizing that I get to choose my own identity. So it was very personal as much as it was a marketing idea, essentially. It was personal in the sense that I love the word sage. To me, it connotates a lot of different things, including wisdom. I happen to have a white sage bush growing in my front yard. So there were just a lot of things that kind of pointed me towards the name. But as I was landing on it, I was actually trying out a few different names. And as I was landing on Sage, something in me stood up, almost like a warrior rising inside of me when I thought of that name. And I have chills even talking about it right now. And then Polaris is the other name that I chose as my last name. And that to me means North Star. And I always try to stay true to my own North Star of who I am. My values are really important to me, my integrity, the way that I show up as a marketer. Tamron, that I kind of taken a stand and put a stake in the ground and said, we don't have to do all of the things that people tell us we have to do in marketing. Instead, we have to find our own way, hence the North Star. I find my own way in this online marketing world, and I encourage all of my clients to do the same. So that's where the Sage Polaris came from.
But I'm curious, did everybody start calling you Sage? That's what I've kind of wondered. Is it just your stage name, so to speak, in air quotes? Or has everyone in your life adopted your name? Has it been like a blanket?
Yeah, people always come to me and they're like, but does your mom call you Sage? Like, is everybody on board with this? They all want to know like what my family thinks.
Yeah.
And look, like, I'll be honest, my family members, a lot of them had a good laugh at my expense. They're like, whatever, you hippie. Like, I mean that in the most loving way. My family members are very straightforward. A lot of them are just like no BS, straight talkers. So they often don't call me Sage. And I tell everyone who knew me as my previous name, it's fine. Call me whatever you want. I'll answer to both. But it's funniest when my friends, they're like, they slip and then they say my previous name and they're like, oh, sorry, Sage. And I'm like, it's okay. You don't have to apologize. But I find it amusing because it's like everybody's kind of trying to find their way around me. And that feels good. Like, I kind of like that I've reordered the way that people approach me. It just, I don't know, there's something very powerful about taking that stand for myself and then watching people kind of fall in line with it.
Absolutely. And I'm curious about how has it changed the way you see yourself, if at all?
Yeah, oh, totally. It made me realize that the biggest shift for me was on the business side, because it really is for my business more than anything else that I chose a new identity. And it's funny, like I can remember in particular, I was in San Diego at a conference and one of my copywriting clients was there and I could see her really watching me. And I knew why she was watching me, because now it wasn't a client relationship anymore. Now I was one of her peers because she's a course creator. I also have courses and the mastermind. And that is something that I could just feel there was no longer a pedestal that I had created. She had never created this pedestal. I had put her on a pedestal of being this amazing person who does incredible things and has this huge audience and community. And now I was that person too. But I could see her watching me differently. And it was cool because it was like, for me, it was a pedestal. For her, it may have been something different. I can't speak for her. So just to remove that self-imposed barrier between me and my clients was really special.
Yeah, I remember watching it from afar and I was fascinated, and I also had my own kind of emotional journey in response to it, in that I was also like, I wonder, like, would that work for me, and how would that feel, and what would I change my name to?
It was fun. Did you come up with any names?
I didn't. I kind of landed on thinking Tamarine's quite cool and stuck there. It's not that unique in South Africa, by the way. So it's a very South African name. Yeah, and every version of it, if you're listening to this and you're not South African, there's Tamarine, Taryn, Tamsin, Tamara, Tamlin, Tamsin. It's like very common.
Cool.
But I lived in Luxembourg in Europe for all of my 20s, and I was very exotic with a very unique exotic name. And obviously my community is also all over the world where they think my name is super unique, but it's not that unique where I am. But I nevertheless kind of like the identity that I've crafted out of it. And I think that's a thread of the conversation I've heard us have so far is about crafting something. You used the word conscious earlier, consciously crafting it, but I'd love to circle back to that word that you pinned on the front where you said a conscious launch strategist. What does that mean in the world of online business?
Yeah, it's so interesting because the word conscious, I recently added to launch strategists, and it was partially inspired by a client who was saying she wanted to attract conscious business leaders. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm one of those. And for me, it's meant different things at different times in my business. So I can give you kind of like the origin story of it and then where I'm at with it now. So originally, I remember when I started my business, it was 8 years ago. So 2000, I'm bad at math, 12. And up until that point, Facebook had been around for 4 years already, around that, if I have my timeline correct. And I remember choosing not to have any presence on Facebook until I started a business. I didn't even have a personal page, let alone a business page. So as I was starting my business, I made a conscious choice at that moment to have a Facebook profile only for my business, even though people were used to posting photos of their pets and their children and everything on
Sure.
Facebook, I knew from the beginning, this is a tool and this is a tool for my business. So that was a conscious choice that I made. And what I see people doing now is they watch these other coaches or people use Facebook to build their business, and they see them like kind of oversharing a lot of personal pieces of their life. And for some people that works and it makes sense for them, and that's how they thrive. For me, I always knew that I was going to use Facebook as a tool. It wasn't going to be a place where I shared too many personal details about my life. I've always taken a bit more of a business angle with it, and that's what worked for me. So being a conscious launch strategist means just making a choice about how you're going to use tools in your business before you get started. Instead of thinking, this works for XYZ, or I want her success or his success, so I'm just going to do what they're doing. And I think that is the wrong way to build a business. And I knew that from the very beginning. And I was very blessed in that way, that I didn't get caught up in the hype of the way people build their business.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are just trying to replicate other people's strategies. And I mean, I definitely fall, I want to say prey to that as well, the kind of air quotes, because there are lots of predatory elements about the online business world. And it's not to say that somebody is being conscious in the way that they broadcast themselves, but when I notice different strategies or tactics being used, I often spend time thinking, oh, should I be doing that? Should I be, posting more pictures of what I'm doing in my car, or, whatever personal stuff, my kids, what my husband's doing, if I'm, going to the doctor or something like that. And what you've just said about just making a conscious choice and then just leaning into your choice really resonates. Something else that's stuck out about you for me from across the ocean as I've kind of watched your business unfold is that you take a tremendous amount of time off. You're off. You're doing, I don't know what you're doing, but you're not working all year, and probably not 24 hours a day like some people are. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about that portion of yourself and how that came about, how you decided that that's how you were going to be.
Yeah, so I take 4 months off every year, and this is the 5th year in a row. Early on, when I had my business and I was serving private clients, I saw a lot of my peers launching courses, and I realized that I actually wanted to focus on serving clients and scaling that, because a lot of people don't feel like they get burnt out on their client work, and then they go straight to, well, I'll just launch a course because I'm so burnt out. And I, again, made that conscious choice. I was like, I'm not going to do what everybody else is doing. I'm not going to put all of my resources into launching a course. Instead, I'm going to continue to serve private clients, but I'm going to hire a project manager, because I know there's a way to do this without it taking up all my time. And I wasn't really interested in going like full-blown agency, but I wanted a small, like handful of 5 people on my team who were supporting projects so that it would allow me to take more time off. And when I presented that to my project manager, I said, I think I'm going to take like 1 or 2 days off a month. And they were very random. It was the worst plan ever. And she was like, no, Sage, that is not what you're doing. Why don't you just take 1 week off every month? And it's usually the last week of the month. And then take an entire month off, and that is how I accumulate the 4 months off total. So it's not in one big chunk, it's actually each month to basically recharge my batteries. And in the beginning, I had a hard time, like I was still planning for business stuff while I was taking that 1 week off, even though I had no client meetings that week. Even just having that kind of space to plan was really helpful. And then over time, I really developed a muscle of relaxing and not feeling like I had to take the business with me on that 1 week off. I take staycations. I take a week off, just go hang out by a pool somewhere at an Airbnb up the street. I love going to the beach. I have these gardens nearby. I go hiking. So just like all those hobbies I kind of dropped when I first started a business, because I was willing to give anything and everything to my business.
You used a phrase that you kind of got used to being able to relax. That's true. We actually have to practice that. And if you're not conscious about it, you can't be on the weekend or on your holiday or vacation and still thinking about your business. How did you do that?
It came on the tail end of a kind of hard experience with my husband because we were on our annual trip to Vegas. He took time off from work and I'm bringing work with me. I realized at that time, I was like, I'm never bringing my laptop on a vacation again. Like, this isn't working for us as a family. It's not fair to him. And I recently, and I'm really excited to really do this even more, trained my phone with the Android app Digital Wellbeing, so that people can't reach me through certain apps during certain times. And I think during that week, I'll just turn all my apps off because I was going to get a second phone. Someone had told me, like, get a second phone without your business apps on it. And I was like, oh, that's so smart. And then I like rushed over to my husband. I was like, I need a second phone. And he's like, no, you don't. Just use Digital Wellbeing. It's already on your phone.
I kind of have this story, this version of my life where I don't have a work and I don't have a play. And I like that for most of the time. But what I do notice is that when I am in a play mode, which for me is renovating and adventuring and exploring and 4x4ing and doing all this stuff, I'm often still thinking about what I'm going to write or what email I'm going to send or what my next launch is going to be like. And I think to be able to really truly rest or really truly play or really truly be present with my gorgeous 2-month-old or 3-year-old or husband or any of the important people to me is actually something that takes practice if you're a business owner.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's so true. And I often encourage people in my mastermind to, like, just this month, we're focusing on planning. And I said, sit down and write down 10 things that you love to do that are not business related. Because if you have a list in front of you, you're more likely to do it. Another thing that I encourage them to do, and for everybody listening, is look at the rest of the year. For us, we're coming at the end of 2020 and all of 2021. I want you to write down all the time you're going to take off now, because if you commit to it now, you'll actually take the time off instead of, like, here in the US, we just had Indigenous Peoples Day, which is a holiday. If you work at a job and you have a job to remind you to not come in, but if you work as an entrepreneur, nobody's going to knock on your door and be like, don't work today. Today's not the day.
That's important. And I've heard you talk about that before, schedule it in the beginning. And in fact, I think I have implemented that version of your advice in different ways, but it's to mentally also do that rather than just what it says in your calendar, that I think is an important idea and an epiphany that I've taken from what you've shared now. The last thing I'd love to hear from you about as we bring our conversation to a close is these are pretty, deciding you're taking 1 week off every month and then a whole month is a new kind of unusual thing. It's not common, and so is changing your name, and so is deciding that the launch online world can do with a lot more conscious decisions. Mm-hmm. How did it come to be that you even chose online business, or that you chose to make these decisions that are so different than the air quotes norm? Have you if you look back at your life, have you always sort of gone right when everyone's going left, or left when everyone's going right? How did you come to be the person who's designed their life this way?
Yeah, so I actually went to art school. I got my degree in the fine arts. I majored in ceramics. And so early on, I knew when I was in art school, and I didn't just do ceramics, I was blowing glass, I was painting, I was trying all these different tools to express myself. And I realized early on, like, the more tools I have in my belt, like, the more I'll be able to express myself in these different ways. And I saw business as a canvas too. So I found what worked for me, what I enjoyed, how did I enjoy expressing myself in business? So that's really how I took like my artistic license and applied it to my business. And, I didn't go to business school, and I think that's a good thing. So if anybody's thinking about starting an online business, don't feel like you have to have some kind of credential. It's so not true.
It's important to just realize that. In fact, I've been working with somebody on a project about that is encouraging people to start side hustles. And that's exactly the same message. I think a lot of people think you have to have gone to business school to start your own business. And that's the biggest load of nonsense. In fact, I agree with you. It's probably better if you don't have some kind of MBA if you're going to be starting, particularly an online business.
Yeah, the online business world is really special, because if you are somebody, and you have to know your own strengths, right? Like there's a million personality assessments out there. The one that I like is called DISC. But knowing your strengths as you build your business, again, this is a conversation I'm having in my mastermind, is like, each month, as you focus on these different things and build your plan for reaching your audience and marketing to them, please look at what are you best at, instead of looking at the way I built my business. Because unless our strengths are pretty much aligned, it may not work the same for you. And that's the crux of making these conscious decisions, is knowing yourself as you build the business.
That's great. That makes a lot of sense for me. Is there any final thoughts you want to leave for anyone who's listening, who thinks, hey, I'd love to do any of the stuff that you and I have chatted about?
I feel like the theme of your podcast, Differently, is so perfect for what's going on in the world right now. And, in the beginning of my online business, and even leading up to the pandemic, I was really able to build out my support. And a lot of those pieces are still in place, but a lot of those pieces, the rug got pulled out from under them, like having some in-house support. That was an opportunity for me to question the way I was doing everything once again. And I've questioned the way I've schooled my children. I've questioned the way I do business. I've questioned the support that I allow in my house, all of those things. And it's a good thing. And again, if you want to have an online business, enjoy having the rug swept out from under you, because it's going to happen a ton.
Yeah.
I know people love to share the success stories and the celebrations. And if you don't learn how to celebrate the failures or celebrate the rug being swept out from under you too, then you are not meant for this. Go somewhere where you can feel more comfortable with your business.
Yeah. And be surprised. I mean, I had a huge promotion, the last promotion I did, which was one of the kind of big ones in my calendar, that did not go even in the remote direction that I thought it was going to go, for all the unpredictability reasons that have happened this year. And it's all fine. It's all okay. But it took probably years, I'd say, to just be like, oh, well, that was surprising. Which direction are we going to go in now? Because it's not a comfortable space, and it's not a certain space.
Yeah. I've really had to sit in a lot of discomfort this year, and we've just had a weird year for the environment, my circumstances, my personal life. Everything has been upended, and I'm not the type of person to flip a table, but I am now if I have to. And I'm faster to do it than I ever have before. Meaning, if someone crosses me, if something's not going the way I thought it was going to be, it's okay for me to either flip the table or just walk away from the table and be like, I don't need this table in my life. I'm good.
Yeah.
And that's been really powerful for me personally, because I was definitely someone who wasn't into confrontation. And it's not that I'm into it now, but when it's necessary, I will do it, because I'm realizing if I hold my feelings back or my emotions back, my business will grow slower. That's just the truth. But also, me personally, I think there's a huge blend between how your business is performing and how you're feeling personally. So if I don't keep the decks clear for myself personally, my business is going to be stunted too. So this is just that year where if you don't like a lot of change, you got to get used to it and be willing to do it faster than usual.
Yeah, but I love that you raised this point just as the final thought to leave you with if you're listening, is that this year has really been a beautiful opportunity to do an audit, a rethink.
And it's such a powerful time to be alive.
Absolutely. Well, it's been such a pleasure to talk with you. I know as both of us being moms who work from home even pre-pandemic, there's such a privilege and a beauty in that, but sometimes it can end up being quite an adventure, and we've managed to capture these beautiful thoughts.
Thank you, Tamron. And yes, I have a gift for your audience. They can go to sagepolaris.com/Tamron and grab that, because I was super excited to be here with your audience.
Thank you so much, and I'll see you on the interwebs. Thanks again.
My pleasure.
And until next time, this is Tamron Sheriffs, and you're listening to Differently.